So, welcome everyone. Welcome to the next episode of the Execution Show. So far, we have had so much fun talking to you in the past episodes, and in this episode, we have someone very special, someone who comes from the book industry. I'll walk you through what Sir has been doing, or what Satyarth Sir has been doing. One, he started with Chopper Stop in their crossword division and selling books. Then he moved on and was with Flipkart when it was a very small business, a single category business selling only books. After that, he worked with Infibeam and again started or introduced India's first uh, ebook reader, something similar to Kindle in an Indian version back then. After that, he headed the Google Play Books business in APAC or Asia Pacific region and was also key leader in Google Play Store in India. After that, he joined Geo team and was one of the most important hands behind Geo Chat. In fact, he led the product and marketing part of it. He was also very instrumental in Geo.com as we see it today. After that, he worked with Tata AIA Insurance and now he's Chief E-commerce Officer at Redington Limited, which is a $5 billion plus business. So it's absolutely our pleasure to talk to Sir, who has seen the journey of Indian growth of the e-commerce space and today where it is and how it is. We are very excited to have you, Sir. Welcome on the show, and we are extremely excited to talk to you and the conversation today.
Same here. Thank you for having me here. I'm looking forward to having a great session, and I hope you have a nice time too.
So today's conversation, as we'd have a session or a topic in every execution show episode, in this particular one, we'll talk about if you already have an e-commerce brand or a D2C brand. In that case, how can you explore B2B or bulk orders or offline as a space to grow your business and the next leg of growth? How can your business increase in size? And you must share this with someone who's running an e-commerce brand, or if you are looking to run an e-commerce or a D2C brand, you must see this. It will be amazing fun, and I'm super thrilled to talk to Sir and the lessons that we'll be having today.
Thank you.
So, sir, let's quickly jump to the chase. Why e-commerce and how is e-commerce? What was your journey? What got you started into e-commerce?
So actually, I started in retailing in books. I am named after a book. So Satyarth Prakashah.
Oh.
That's the name of the book by Swami Dayanand Saraswati. And somewhere I got interested in books, and after college I realized that I did not have a very clear path in terms of career choices, and I liked books, so I ended up kind of selling books. I mean, that's how in simple the journey started. I was with Crossword, then moved to Borders in Dubai, and I was heading the GCC for Borders, which was the largest book retailing chain at that point in time. And then Lehman Brothers crisis happened, and Borders in US went under. So you can imagine I'm just a 2-3 year experienced guy, and all of a sudden, what's the economic crisis? Why is the company shutting down in US and all of that? So I go and hit the internet, and internet is also fairly new. Okay, so I try to find out as much as I can. I talk to my international publishers, distributors, what's happening, and I had been getting the murmurs, but there were two seminal things that happened. First was iPhone launch, and iPhone brought in ebooks. And the second thing that had happened was focus of Amazon on Kindle and ebooks. And that response had been met by the publishers in US, by Barnes and Nobles, who was Borders' competitor, had jumped into the foray, and everybody was just talking ebooks. I mean, it had become the in thing. Everybody had an iPhone had ebooks, and it was being sold for $9. Amazon had brought in the $9 concept, and the books industry was reeling under this shock, and Borders could not kind of take in that shock and survive, right? So I was my contract was about to get finished, and it was not renewed because that impact from Borders US reached the Dubai shores as well. When I came back to India, I had kind of a deep and this thing thought that should I come back to retailing in India? And I realized if what has happened in US sooner or later is going to happen in India. And that made me think, So I was actually going to become the country manager for one of the other e-commerce, one of the bookstore chains, WH Smith for
Okay.
Oman, and I have closed that, and I'm roaming around in Delhi Book Fair, and I meet two gentlemen with like 15-20 computers in their stall inside Delhi Book Fair, and I'm like super impressed that book fairs are very drab affairs. I mean, a lot of books, dusty old books, people with handheld invoices and everything. And in that, these two gentlemen are running a fully red colored stall. I still remember that photograph clearly in my head. And a lot of women promoters outside the stall bringing people in. So I'm like, this is 2010. Okay. So I'm like, okay, 2010 January, Pragati Maidan. Okay. So I'm thinking these guys are smart because they have set up a cyber cafe over here. Because the book fair is vast and the network was not what it is nowadays, right? So cyber cafes were a thing at that point of time. And I'm like, these guys are smart. They know exactly that with such a crowd, I mean, people would want to check their mails and stuff, and they have set up a. So I went over there to check my mail, and I bumped into two people who were Binni Bansal and Sujit Kumar, and both of them, and they're like, no, we are kind of not doing cyber cafe here. We are teaching people how to buy online.
Okay.
And imagine, I mean, the moment they say that, a thread connects in my head from where I have just kind of come back to India and I am on my way looking for next one. And I'm like, hey, I think we can do something together. And that leads to a series of conversations. And that's how I ended up in e-commerce. Because I was really convinced by both of these gentlemen, the way they talked about their plans to take over the e-commerce in India. And I'm talking about in 2010 when nobody knew that, right? E-commerce in 2010 was Home Shop 18 and Rediff and Times and India Plaza and these were the guys, and the website used to be completely different experience, right? And in that, these two gentlemen in a very drab, dusty book fair with a shiny stall, these two gentlemen are saying that this is their ambition. I mean, it was just, I mean, unbelievable. And I put two and two together, and I said, okay, let's kind of do this.
So books was your passion, and again, similar story. I love books, and that is why I started selling books. So I think that's been our story as well. But so books was something that you were into already, and then digital was the new means to go about it. How was your experience at Flipkart, and what was the early days of e-commerce in India like?
It was crazy. With Flipkart, to tell you honestly, till that point of time, I was a subject matter expert. My main capability was I understood the category very well, what sells, what does not sell. Books is a unique product because each book is unique in itself. It's a value proposition in itself. You might club the book as a product.
Category, yeah.
But if you look at one iPhone in red and one iPhone in blue, their value proposition is same. But this book versus that book, the value proposition might be completely different. If one person buys this product, does not mean he will buy the other product, right? And in that, I had a fairly good understanding of at least thousands of titles. That what each title is, what their selling capability is, who is publishing them, and blah blah blah. And that was the subject matter expertise which had taken me a few years to build. And when I looked at Flipkart had flipped it. I had no kind of understanding of e-commerce at that point of time. I had read what everybody, I mean, we read a couple of books and we think we understand things. But at Flipkart, I realized that my subject matter expertise actually holds very little value. Because the search engine itself, because people need what they need, they will come, they will search for it. As long as I have it in my catalog, I can sell it. I don't need to, in my early days in offline, I used to take painstaking measures to how much stock to buy. If I have 20 stores, which store should carry how much of merchandise? That used to be my prime problem, right? Here, that is not a problem at all. Here, the problem is, do I have everything that is there in the market so that I can not just cover the bestsellers, but I also cover the long tail of people that are coming in. So that was my first learning, that suddenly my subject matter expertise is not as important, but the volume is. So from value, it became volume, that what is the size of my catalog? How many relationships do I have? How many publishers am I connected with? how many books, how many categories, how many subcategories, what is the quality of the web page, what is the quality of listing, am I telling the am I giving the buyer enough information for him to make an informed decision whether this book is for him or not him, and so on and so forth. Even SEO was not a prime thing then. It was mostly value oriented, buyer oriented. My second thing was that when you're in a company, when I joined, Flipkart at that point was doing some 100, orders a day. By the time I left, we were doing 20,000 orders a day. I left after 8 months. You can imagine the growth possibilities. And I'm talking of 2010. Now, Zeptos and others, I mean, they have done miracle from day one, right? But in 2010, that was unprecedented. I mean, by the time you bring in a table in a warehouse to process orders, you are building up from 200 orders, you are thinking, I'll build up something infra for 1000 orders. Before you finish building that up, your orders volume is 1200 orders, right? So that growth put immense amount of human strain. And I think I was not kind of geared up to respond to that. I simply burnt out. I mean, in 2010, my health deteriorated. I was maybe some 65 kgs or something. My weight became 65 kgs or something. Would not sleep, eat. I was working crazy hours. I was flying between Delhi, Bangalore, on and off. In a month, I would make 2 or 3 trips in a week, and with very short notices. So at some point, I mean, I said that this can't be right. I might not be doing it right. I don't understand the basics of this business. Let me take a step back. Let me go and learn this properly and then come back to it. And I kind of left Flipkart at that point of time.
Got it. Can you tell us something about the spenders, the buyers that were there back then, and how have they changed fundamentally from now? And maybe you can talk about the journey. Also, the generation has changed. It's 15 years since then.
I won't say generation is much of this thing. The need has changed. You won't believe that our prime proposition back then used to be people would come online because they cannot find a book in the local market. So that was the prime proposition, that you have a bookseller. So every city in India has one market which is predominantly books market, or an area that sells educational books and that sells normal books. And books generally have been very expensive in India. Generally, like cheaper than the rest of the world, but more expensive than the purchasing power of the Indian customer.
Okay.
So I remember that when Da Vinci Code came out, it was a 225 rupee book. It was 225 rupee book when samosa was around 10 rupees, right? And now samosas are at 17 rupees in Mumbai at least. And you can see how the pricing for this thing has changed. So what used to happen was that small retailers in small town would not keep a book like Da Vinci Code. So now internet was coming into India, and people were going online and were reading about this book and that book, and that they should be reading. But the small retailer in their town is not keeping that stock, because that retailer has to pay the money upfront and add that book to his stock. If the book does not sell, and I told you earlier the problem with book, each book is a unique value proposition, right? If that book does not sell, that money is down the drain because it is a paid for stock. So the small retailer in small town what they would do is they would keep very tried and tested books, things that have been selling for last 30 years. So they would carry authors like Jeffrey Archers and Frederick Forsyths and a ton of those Dale Carnegie. I mean, written in 1925, How to Win Friends and Influence People. You will find that in every corner in every town in India, right? Because it's a safe book to keep. Aaj nahi to kal. Yeah, not today, tomorrow it will sell, right? And what would happen is people would read about these new things on internet, but they would not find it in their small towns. Then somebody will tell them that why don't you try and go from Flipkart. Before that, there was already by 2008 to 10, there was already a very big industry of import books from Amazon, because the higher education sector was also booming. You had colleges like ISB and others set up, and you had a healthy inflow of instructors and professors coming in from outside who were bringing in the books that were going on in US, and they were not available in India.
Sure.
Why were they not available? Because the Indian publisher would not get the rights from their sister concern in US to print it in India, because India is a very price sensitive market. So a $15 book will not come to India, a $30 book will not come to India, because very tough to negotiate, and basically people were not being responsible. So people would go to Amazon.com and directly import it. So this was another market that was growing. So one was in fiction, and in other categories, the sector that was this, and the educational books were recommended books were being imported from Amazon, which was growing year on year.
Got it.
So these were the two trends that Flipkart and other companies like Flipkart. It was, if you see in 2010, now it looks like, looking back, that Flipkart was the company, right? But in 2010, there were many companies that were trying to sell books, right? And there were retailers who had set up books, there were distributors who had set up online bookstores, all of that, and Flipkart was one amongst them, right?
Got it.
So these were the two things that were picking up.
Got it. So that helps me. That is a wonderful insight into actually the evolution of how the biggest Indian or India-grown e-commerce store came into existence, and how it was just one
By
of
the
them.
way, this is black tea.
Not black coffee.
Readers, watchers, black tea. Yeah?
So I'll follow that up with a question, because ultimately they were still selling hard books. They were still selling the means of communication, the means of selling changed, and we would want to spend more time on the supply chain, understanding how the supply side of both things worked. Since one did not carry inventory, one had a lot of inventory, the one when you were with Crossword. But before I come that, let me move forward to your next stint, which was at Google in managing their playbooks at APAC region or Asia Pacific region. In this, you are now selling a digital product.
Actually, it was not only at Google. Sorry to.
Yeah, please.
So the story actually took a turn that from Flipkart I moved on to Infibeam. Infibeam at that point of time was equivalent in terms of sales with Flipkart, but Infibeam had been set up by 12 ex-Amazonians.
Okay.
And they were very, very into what Amazon is doing in US. And I told you that how Apple and Amazon had come in. So Infibeam was the first company to do two things in India. One was bring in an ebook reader called Infibeam Pi, which was a Kindle kind of reader, the same similar technologies, that is backlit LED, LCD. And they were the first ones to also bring in e-magazines and e-books from their tie-ups from international partners. These two things did not exist in India, at least very popularly back then. And by virtue of my good luck or whatever, Vishal Mehta decided that I should handle this.
The
CEO and the founder. And I mean, there are a few people who have taught me what they have taught, and Sachin Oswal and Vishal Mehta, both at Infibeam. They have been my gurus in this. So, and both of them gave me this section and this category, which gradually led me to this stint at Google, because Google was trying to set up the Play Store for India, had set up the Play Store for India, but it was running in an auto mode. And when they went out to find somebody to run this, they looked at the market, and I was somehow positioned with an ebook background, with some experience in ebooks and e-devices under my belt. So it became a very easy choice, I think, for them to kind of take me on and take me to Japan. So that's how that happened.
Got it. No, so now when you're with Google, how is India? And I get you are managing entire Asia Pacific, but just focusing on India as a market, going from not buying books to online to reading books online. How was that transition? How did the customers adopt? How did the customer journey go through?
A lot of things. I mean, where do I begin even? So, for instance, I had seen how the customers responded to Infibeam Pi, right? It was a very lightweight device.
How was the experience? How was the response first time whoever was seeing it?
People could not understand that you can just read it on a device. How can you? Because in India, Android phones had started coming in 2011.
Yeah.
And while people are getting used to Android phones, I am coming in and giving them a tablet-like device and saying that, hey, this device is for 11,000 rupees, in which you will get 5,000 or 4,000 ebooks loaded, and you can read ebooks on this. The Indian customer is thinking that, boss, this is more expensive than my phone.
Yeah. I
right?
remember that was time of Micromax and
And this was the time of Micromax also wasn't, I mean, maybe I don't remember it right. Micromax somewhere, I think 2013-14 is where Micromax actually kind of blossomed. But 2011 was, people were still importing phones from outside, Samsung and others. And it was still the time of BlackBerry Stone and BlackBerry Bold, if you remember Blackberries. And everybody was still carrying a full keyboard set of Blackberries in 2011 when I am trying to sell Infibeam Pi, which is a touchscreen.
got it.
Right? So, of course, people did not understand that at all. It required a really hard sell. And after even people who understood, getting a product worth 10,000 rupees online through e-commerce, not an easy deal.
Yeah.
Right? So, both of these, of course, were great learning curves on how to. So, institutional sales and a lot of things we tried back then to kind of get customers. While imagine like within 1 year in 2013, I'm in Google, and Google is working on similar challenges, but on what? On a hand device. So now I am working with the Mountain View product team, giving them feedback on what should be the animation for a playbook reader that it looks accurate. It gives you that feel that you have flipped a page.
Yeah.
The problem with the hand device is, at the end of the day, on a touch screen, any action you do is a tap or a swipe.
Yeah.
Even if you are killing a ginormous demon, you are shooting people in PUBG,
Yeah.
you are doing whatever meaningful activity that you are doing in your head. At the end of the day, all that is just tap and swipe. Right? While book readers who are ardent readers, there are two kinds of customers.
Yeah.
There are whales and there are non-whales. In gaming, they are called whales, people who spend a lot of money inside gaming. Similarly, in books, it is again an 80-20 principle. 20% of the people are responsible for 80% of the purchases in non-educational and non-institutional category. These are the guys who are reading one book a week and they keep on buying, they keep on gifting. Because they read, they want other people to have similar experiences. So and I'm sure you have a lot of those friends who keep on giving you books as gifts, right? And these guys, for them, the experience of reading books is very important. Next comes the next tier of customers for whom being seen with a book is very important.
Okay.
So they will buy a book because they can afford it. They will find out the latest title, they will buy it, maybe read a couple of pages also. But majority of the time will be spent with these, with roaming around with these books. You will find coffee table pay, they'll be sitting in Starbucks, the book will be on the table, not being read.
Just kept
While they will be on the phone. You will find book titles in the back of the car, in the parking lots. Yeah. So this is the second category of customer who buys, but who are more socially aware buyers. It's a persona. Yeah. So these are the few categories, but the major category still remains the readers, right? And they are very particular about how they read.
Yeah.
So for them, the reading experience on a tablet or a mobile has to match the reading experience with the physical book.
Yeah.
So how do you do that? When you read a book, what is the physical experience that you have? First of all, there is a weight that you feel in your hand. Second is the reflective quality of the paper, the smell of the paper,
the smell,
the smell of the paper, right? And the flipping of the pages. When you flip a page, every reader will tell you, ardent reader will tell you, that is the small motivational thing. One page flipped, and you get one little bit of dopamine, this much, that one more page I read, and that flip. Yeah. How do you make a page flip in a tablet or an ebook? That was the kind of problem that we were trying to solve, right? And we did eventually crack that, where the animation completely feels as if you have flipped a page, where the sound that comes out gives you that feeling that it is flipping a page, right? And the font size and other things, of course, they were. So they were, but of course, when you talk of a region like APAC, there are other challenges coming. Different age groups. So thankfully, mobile is stronger here because if you read large fonts, you can make the font larger. You can't do that in a book. So that was a different customer segment that started coming in. There were other customers, for instance, there are manga and some of these categories where print quality is very important. So mobile gives you that vibrant feel versus a book on a page, it ages with time, becomes yellow and does not give you the same feel. So these were the prime changes that came in.
Yeah.
We'll discuss more on the this thing.
So actually, that has been our experience as well. Actually, we tried to sell books on digital copies more, but somehow people, it's still 80% of our sales is hard copies, and only the remaining 20% is actually people buying digital copies. So I can totally relate the page flipping and the number of pages read. If you read for 2 hours and you feel, oh, I read 20 pages versus, oh, I read 5 pages. That's just something a little more.
There's also another level, Anurag. Sorry if I
Yeah,
digress.
please.
See, when you grow up in a home, for instance, when I grew up in a home, the first books that I read were the books that my parents had bought and they had kept.
Yeah.
So there's an element of property, sharing, and shareability, common ownership. When a household buys the stuff, it might be an individual paying for the stuff, but in a country like India, a household is buying that book. It is not an individual buying that book. But the digital experience, in at least in content, videos, music, books, has always focused on individual ownership. I might have one of the biggest digital libraries on my phone,
Yeah, but
but my kid will not have access to that and will not have ownership and will not have any discoverability of that content, which is something which a lot of people in my generation and the newer generations have started to realize. And that is where the clock is going back to physical ownership of vinyl or physical ownership of books and that readability. So I think that technology companies were very good in marketing the digital aspect of things, but it is very functional if you look at it. That yes, I can gather information very quickly from a digital book. I can search for content. I can mark and highlight relevant sections, but I can't share that book with anyone. I can't share that experience. So then it becomes very functional that a book is not an emotional journey anymore. It becomes a very functional product where I'm using it to gain knowledge, but that's about it. So technology sometimes splits things into these weird ways where the physical and emotional are broken apart, right? And people have started realizing and integrating that back, is what my personal feel is. I might be wrong.
Got it. I think no, that's very much true. I think that sense of feel, you can't be only functional benefit out of a product. You need to have all the social, emotional, all those benefits of a product as well. Uh, so if you notice, we've been discussing about three models so far. We've been discussing about your time at offline retail. We discussed in detail about Flipkart and early days with digital businesses and digital ways of selling hard products or physical products. So basically e-commerce. And thirdly, we also divided it and saw your stint at selling digital products and how the journey was at Infibeam and Google. And these are essentially different ways of retail.
True.
So, and again, the categories, we can divide multiple categories into each one of them, and some things are still offline heavy, some things are online heavy, some products are more digitized, experiences are digitized, and so on and so forth. So now, if we get cut to the technical part and we get to the more technical part, so let's say I am someone, and this we'll keep it very short. We'll keep it about 5 to 7 minutes, or what. So I feel. Please feel free to take the leeway of sharing as much of you as you can in your experience. If someone is joining or starting a e-commerce business today, let's just list down the channels that they have, and how can they build it. And obviously e-commerce business and D2C businesses, often the lines blur in terms of how people use the words interchangeably. Those are two very different businesses. So digital business, the e-commerce side of things, how can someone looking or owning a brand can do that? And second part to that would be, after this would focus much more on the B2B side. If you are someone who is established or who is doing a digital business, or an online business or an e-commerce business or running a D2C brand, how can you make a very sizable B2B part to your business as well? That is what majority chunk of this conversation would be about post this introduction.
Sure, that's a great question. So if you'll traditionally pick up e-commerce segmentation types of businesses, right? You will find segments like B2B, B2C, then D2G. Now there's direct to government after the GEM portal and all. I mean, these kind of segments are also being pushed up, right? And then you will find, so these are like who are the entities, nature of entities, and the segmentation based on that. Then you will find other segments by value, like, okay, is it a physical product distribution, is it a software product distribution, is it a hardware, software. Then you will find distinctions like, is it a dropship business model,
Okay.
right? So where basically essentially somebody else is running the business, you are a participant, and so on and so forth. So these are major categories, yes, traditionally, but at the end of the day, there are only two kinds of e-commerce business: cash intensive e-commerce businesses,
Okay.
which is capital intensive, and capital non-intensive businesses. That's what I want to, I want to simplify it for you guys. Either it is capital intensive or non-capital intensive. Capital intensive, you want to go ahead and create the next quick commerce. Of course, have $1 million at least to start with, right? Because there will be physical expenditure. You will have to buy stock, you will have to have properties rented out, people, and blah 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 blah, right? So if you today want to create an e-commerce store in quick commerce, and there are friends who have tried, who had a ginormous department store in some city, and they thought, hey, Swiggy is doing it, Zepto is doing it, let me also invest 1 crore rupees and let me take over this city, at least in quick commerce delivery. And they burned their hands and they realized that it takes much more money than that. And then there is the non-intensive part, where you can use Shopify, WordPress, Squarespace, Wix, whatever your platform of choice is, and you can create an e-commerce store very cheaply. You can invest a little bit of money into buying some inventory, testing it out, and then rolling out in the market. Both have their own strengths and their own profitability paths and everything. But the glaring difference is, if you have capital, you can get into e-commerce, and the capital then becomes your strategy. You have to outspend your competition, and you will own the market, and you will reach everywhere. And it's a good strategy. If you do not have capital, you can still get into e-commerce, but you have to then find your niche, which is not being serviced. And so the niche becomes your strategy. That have you been able to find a slice of the customer that is not being serviced? It might be headphones for people above 50 years. And that can be a niche that you can actually run, service, and India, thankfully, is a market large enough that you will make money out of that. So I think that e-commerce as a business model offers something for all. I mean, if you are a ginormous VC, there's a business model for you. And if you're a student, you can get it very easily into a model like dropshipment, and you can at least make some passive income. And so there's something for you. That's the beauty of e-commerce. That's why I love the field.
Yeah. So basically what you said was, one is obviously trying to be a larger platform, someone like a Zepto or someone like a Blinkit or Amazon back in the day. And I'm sure multiple categories have multiple platforms of their own as well. And one is where your product is doing the talking for you, and you are actually the creator of the product more than being a platform to someone else's product. And those are two different ways to go about building a e-commerce business. So let's take the case two, which is you being the owner of your product and building that platform up. What are some 6, 7, 8 things that you should do? Very specific, let's say someone has started out, is planning to start out, or has been in it for, let's say, less than a year. What should their 6, 7 pointers be to scale this and say reach at least 10 lakhs a month or 20 lakhs a month, somewhere around that?
When you say own a product, means am I sourcing a product from somewhere, or am I manufacturing? Because the strategy would be different for both of them.
Sure.
So for ease sake, let's see that you're sourcing your product from somewhere.
Sure, let's say that.
Right? So if you ask me step by step, I will kind of give you, the first thing should be, go through Helium 10, go through keyword analysis, go through Google, go through every single tool, and there are enough videos on YouTube, enough guides that will tell you how to do it to find the niche that appeals to you.
Just for context, Helium 10 is an Amazon search keyword tool where basically it's a paid tool that you can use to understand data about different products on Amazon.
Right? That is the basis. Why am I saying this as the first point is there are many people who think they understand the market and they go ahead and I have met enough of those who have burnt their fingers, who are sitting on stock, not knowing what to do. So do that keyword analysis first, see what the niche is, where the market is pointing to you. Don't use your gut to discover the market, use data.
Okay.
That is the first point. Once you have the data, don't just go ahead and say that, hey, now I have the data, let me buy a ton of stock and then kind of, get into it. Be smart. Use a lean startup methodology. What that would mean is test that hypothesis that you have with a dummy web page. Go and buy a Shopify ka 2000 rupees ka page for a month. Put up a form over there and put up dummy product images, that the section that you want to see get into, at some URL. Spend 30,000 rupees in marketing that URL. See how many people pre-sign up, how many people sign up, how many people show an interest for that particular product segment. Before you say that, this is the truth. Once you see that there is enough traction and you have seen that how many people have signed up, you have a marketing funnel to begin with. You understand that, okay, I spent 30,000 rupees. I got 1,000 people to come in and sign up for this product, which is at this price. That will also give you a lot of things. If you do it smartly and if you do it in a multivariate way, you can also discover your price points along with not only with the product segments. Okay. Now use that information. There are enough websites and enough sources outside, and you can read about that in my upcoming book as well.
Yeah, wow.
Nicely plugged. But there are enough websites outside India and inside India as well. Yeah. There are markets in every single, I can't go into every single one of them, but Delhi has its own Nehru Place and Mumbai has its own. And if you want to go into categories like shopping, fashion, wear, all of that is within your control. Then go and source, but don't go and source the hell out of it. Because the easiest way to die in e-commerce business is with inventory.
So what did they, don't source the hell out of it? What will that mean?
That will mean source responsibly. Build a business plan as your third step. What is the money you will spend? How much traffic are you expecting now that you have some hypothesis and data? What is the cost? What will it come to? Buy for a month. Check out how your suppliers react. What is the pricing that they give in that 1 month? How much time did they take to send it to you?
Sure.
Right? Spend a lot on packaging, because that is the only place where your customers are physically meeting you. The rest, everything is virtual. But packaging is the first time when a customer is shaking hands with you. That is your extension, that product that they are holding in your hands. So spend a lot on packaging, make the packaging really good.
What should packaging cover?
Packaging should be that what is the experience, look and feel, artwork, strength, the way the product was delivered to the customer, whether it was in a banged up box or whether the real packaging was in a inside an outer covering. Did the customer manage to open it easily? Ease of opening, ease of experience. Did it have some personal touches? Many founders, they go ahead and they put in handwritten notes and things like that. Many founders go ahead and put in a request for a review. Many founders put in cashbacks that if you come and buy me. So there are many ways to handle this. But packaging and packaging design is supremely important in terms of creating the premium experience or whatever experience that you are. If you are trying to showcase a responsibility, that you are a responsible company, your packaging should reflect that. If you're trying to show that you are a premium company, you can't send it out in a shoddy, flimsy packaging, right? So your packaging has to reflect whatever your website has reflected.
Got it.
Most of the times what happens is it's very easy to spend 2,500 rupees, go and get a very premium looking Shopify template.
Yeah.
Okay, but creating that premium packaging actually costs money and effort.
And every time
and
you
people,
ship a product.
Yeah, and people miss out on that. So Shopify, somebody else has given it, so wo kar diya.
I think we are also guilty of it to some extent in terms of packaging. Yeah, so that is why this question.
No, so that's what. So if you have set up a standard on your website, maintain that standard and that set of experience across wherever the customer is meeting you. Packaging is one place. Second is all your marketing and marketing assets. What you're doing on Instagram. All of it has to be in sync so that the customer, and trust me, I mean, to the level, I will go ahead and say that if you have set up a premium looking brand, then you can't go into an award function in t-shirt and flip-flops. All of it is integrated.
How do you
A founder's persona, the founder's brand, the brand's packaging, the brand's marketing, the Instagram, the interviews, the quality of interaction, what you're writing on blog. You can't be running a premium brand and then going and writing onto a blog about how your last auto ride was about this and what happened there and this. I mean, you will have to choose content very smartly. So you have to create that entire persona, and the persona covers the founder.
Sure.
The founder is not outside of it. So that is what I meant. So the first few things we discussed.
Yeah, please let's come back.
Setting up, first of all, finding your
Data,
keywords.
Second was creating a dummy page.
Testing out. Third, setting up the store. Fourth
was packaging.
Right? And fifth, inventory. That keeping the inventory only for a month to begin with, and if you see traction, then you onboard and load more inventory. And these are 5 around e-commerce. And then there are pointers around in general business sensibilities. Being smart with money, not overcommitting, being good governance led company, because it's also very easy to commit fraud on e-commerce. And we saw this thing in Shark Tank where somebody was called out by I think Vinita or someone, where the company claimed to have like high revenues, but later on wo sare transactions they kind of could not substantiate those transactions, right? So be governance led, ethical in general, treat people right, hire good talent, and these are the basics. So it's not just that you create a shiny website and do all of these 5 things, but please also do these 5 things. Be fiscally responsible, hire well, be ethical, good governance, and be a good corporate citizen. And you combine these 5 and 5, and I'm telling you, nobody can beat you.
So this helps us set up our business well. How about marketing of this?
Marketing, the best marketing is a happy customer, I'll tell you. I am one of those guys who has been brought up on, all of us have our own value systems, and where we first learned what we learned. One of my early mentors in CrossWord was Mr. Kumar Rajgopalan, and he is now the CEO of Retailers Association of India.
Wow.
And so imagine in my first job, and he used to tell us, Satya, nuksan mein bhi nafa hona chahiye. Okay. So nuksan mein bhi, so you can imagine that I am selling books, I have some dead inventory, I am asking him permission that can I liquidate this? And he's like, Satya, you're okay to liquidate this, but make sure that out of that loss also we get some kind of profit, right? So I am that kind of value seeking leader. So to answer your question, if you ask me, marketing for me is kind of, if you have money left after you have done everything that you can on the product, which is where you are giving the value to your customer, after you have done everything for the packaging so that your customer gets that joy when he buys it, right? If you have done everything on the website and if you have money left, then you go and do marketing. And even when you do marketing, make sure that you do marketing in a way. See, I don't want to rattle off ki Insta pe ye kar lo, utne mein wahan seat hai. I'm not going into that. I'm telling you the basics. After that, if you go ahead and if you do marketing, my bad, if you go ahead and do marketing, do it in the most responsible way in which your customers get the maximum value. So I would go and paste whatever content I want to do on Insta, on Facebook, on Google, and I will run AdWords but I am more kind of a guy who would go and actually buy Amazon ads than Google ads, who will buy Insta because it performs better than Google, who would, if all else fails, if I have 200 rupees, I would spend 100 rupees on Amazon ad and a 100 rupee coupon that gives a cashback to my customer. rather than building an awesome event somewhere and sitting with an influencer and doing. I'm that kind of a guy. I would want that whatever money I spend goes back to my customer rather than anything else. That's the kind of marketing I believe in.
Got it. Got it. Got it. So I think that helps me understand the price part, the credit part. Now let's come to the third and most important part, the team part. What kind of team? So we know D2C brands, they will typically know, or e-commerce brands, they'll know what kind of teams are required to build a D2C brand. A digital marketing team, a content team, a SEO team, and all those. What kind of team is required to build an B2B team or an offline team for an online business to go there?
I think the only difference is that a D2C brand is complete in itself to some level. But for B2B, there are very few pure play B2B players right now in India who are only digital, right? Most of the B2B players are offline and will continue to remain offline because there is no way that the entire distribution will always, there will be that long tail and there will be a set of segments who will continue buying offline. Just like however successful Amazon, e-commerce and Flipkart and Swiggy and Zomato and all of these guys become, offline retailing is not going to shut down. So the offline distribution piece is also not going to shut down, right? And therefore, there will always be a business who will have an e-commerce aspect to it,
Okay.
right? And so the team that comes in will have this additional uh, kind of relationship and additional understanding of corporate processes, because in B2B you will see that there are a lot of checks and balances. For instance, credit is one very technical piece, right?
Yeah.
And suddenly credit requires, then if the moment the credit comes in, finance comes in, treasury comes in, audit comes in, and all of these functions come in,
And
right?
then operations come in.
Right? If in B2B, in B2C, you have small, maybe sub 500 gram parcels going out.
Yeah.
But in B2B, it can be from 500-gram parcel
To a truck.
to a truck which can go out and again needs different setup, different this thing which is already there. And now your e-commerce team needs to understand that complexity. So if your e-commerce team is completely wet behind behind their ears, do not understand how businesses operate, do not have this view, they will struggle in the first 1 year or two to kind of understand these complex
The differences.
processes. While if you have people which are a mix of people who have come in from these offline businesses and online businesses and they have gelled together, where they can translate each other's world for them, that will be the best team to actually build. Where there are a lot of learning. See, the offline distribution has been there for since ages, right? And there are a lot of intrinsic learnings to that.
Yeah.
Learnings around fraud, learnings around best practices, and similarly in digital there are a lot of learnings, and both need to overlap in a B2B commerce.
Got it. Got it. Got it. So obviously, two businesses have very different teams and structures and finances and operations and all those things. One last part about B2B business. Let's say I am a D2C person trying to sell B2B products online, or trying to sell, let's say, via Amazon business, where I am selling it to resellers via Amazon, or I am trying to sell on things like maybe Udan, Alibaba, where resellers are buying, or there are category wise platforms where resellers are buying from the platform. So, in those cases, what is the best practice, or what are some things that I should look into to generate sales, just from a marketing and sales perspective, not from an operations perspective, to be successful in these endeavors?
See, I mean, Amazon business is a completely different platform from Udan, I would say, and
Sure.
the completely different base and proposition and everything, right? For Amazon business, I don't think you need to do anything separate specifically. The majority of what Amazon business is doing is giving a GST invoice, and that's the appeal. So the prices that you see on Amazon business are not inclusive of the GST part, and it's still in very infancy. So it's basically right now Amazon business is majorly, as far as, if I'm wrong, please let me know. But as far as I know, Amazon Business is majorly being used by the professionals in India with GST numbers
But
and very
also
small businesses.
for quantity discounts and
Correct. Quantity discounts, you will find that a lot of items that are there on Amazon do not offer quantity discounts, because most of these items, if they are from big brands, there are 10 hoops to jump before a big brand will actually allow you for a quantity discount
sure.
to an unknown entity
Yeah.
coming off the internet through Amazon.
Okay.
Okay, so that is
A
very, very
difficult sell.
unlikely, unless, yeah, of course, a D2C brand would
Be happy about it.
would be happy about it, would build 10 different things, right? In B2B, you have other people also, like Moglix, who are doing very well. There's an entire set of B2B which is tuned, like Bizon, Go, Infra.markets. These guys are working on a different level, matlab, like at the very top of the funnel, in the sense raw materials and arranging. That is also B2B e-commerce, right? So I'm just focusing right now on D2C and Amazon to keep it simple. So I don't see very different strategies as far as Amazon Business is concerned versus Amazon, as far as the platform. They have done, the page structure is same, the pricing is same. In 99% of the cases, the pricing is same.
Got it.
So I don't think you need to do anything extra. If you have kept your customer pricing competitive, by default, your business pricing will be competitive.
Got it.
And there is very little you can do some like extra. When you look at platforms like Udaan, right? That is where the game changes a little bit, because now you are in Udaan or JioMart, and both of these are, or Ninja Carts and some of these others, right? Now you have a retailer who's very price sensitive, who's very deal centric. And these platforms allow you to have deals. On top of that, these platforms, the products that they're selling are mostly like near expiry nahi bolna chahiye, that's a wrong word, but finite expiry. If I sell you a headphone that has an expiry printed, or maybe does not have expiry printed, or expiry of 3 years, but these products are that are being sold from Udaan, and major products. Udaan also has now expanded into many categories, but the majority of the products are near expiry. They are being sold to retailers, and retailers are not buying to stock them. Retailers want rotation. So I think a deal mechanism would work really well on Amazon, on Udaan, but the number of sellers on Udaan, the categories, they are artificially curated. In Amazon, you can go and list Amazon, and Amazon will not stop you from listing. But that is not the same thing for Udaan. You can't just go ahead and list on Udaan. Okay. You have to discuss with Udaan. You can't go and list on Instamart. You can't just go and list on Blinkit. These are gated platforms, right? And so that's why I said it becomes interesting, because here, if Udaan does allow you to list, if you do work with Udaan, you can do something over there, because the first filtering has already happened. Udaan has onboarded you, means there is a need for your product, there is a demand, there is a market. You just need to now work on the pricing and the offer to gain that market actively, partnering with the platform owner. Right? So that's the difference.
Got it. So all right. So I think that helps me. I think there is a lot of space. There are so in Surat as well, we have some textile businesses that sell B2B digitally, and B2B. I'm assuming larger packages than what a consumer would typically purchase. So that is where learnings around this have rooted from, or at least observations have, not learnings. So I think that has been really fruitful, sir, in terms of understanding how the B2B space works. Before we close the conversation, I'll take your leave here. And since you mentioned Zepto, Blinkit right away, uh, what is the future of e-commerce with quick commerce coming into India, with quick commerce, and how do you see them?
See, at the end of the day, e-commerce is just retailing.
Yeah.
Yeah. For various reasons, we have put a word on it, e-commerce, but it is retailing. And India has been a country of retailers ever since. In my hometown, there's a small joke that अगर कुछ नहीं बना तो दुकान खोल के लड़के को बिठा दो, right? That means कुछ ना कुछ तो हो ही जाएगा. So retail is the end aspiration, end result of a lot of people. It's easy to get into, it's easy to get out of us as well. And what Blinkit and Zepto and Big Basket and others are trying to do is consolidate this particular market and own it, right? And while Flipkart was a new business model in competition with the same retailers, these guys are much more closer in their offering to the retailer with their 10-minute and 15-minute and delivery, right? That means a retailer, if the retailer was very customer centric and if he wanted to do more things, these are the things he would do, right? He would say कि sir आप tension मत लो, I will come to your place and I will deliver the goods at you. आप बस मेरे को phone पे बता दो what do you need, right? That is what these guys are doing. They are, in my head, they are retailers. They are exactly, their value proposition is exactly the same as a retail value proposition, being done much more. So if you look at it, Amazon and Flipkart were the granddaddies, the older models competing with retailers from a distance. Now these guys are doing a hand-to-hand combat in the trenches. And if they succeed, our Indian retailing game will kind of get impacted a lot as far as standardized products are concerned.
The ones that sell through
As
quickly.
far as an SKU can be standardized, packaged, sold, that game will get impacted. Where there is a brand and where there is no perceptible difference between two products. आप समझ रहे हैं? एक है बासमती इंडिया गेट बासमती राइस and then there is the local khulla retail basmati rice, right? As long as it is packaged and standardized, Blinkit and Zomato and Zepto and others, whoever are getting into the business, will have a very good hand. But which also means that the end price is very difficult.
More competitive.
It's more competitive. End price is win or lose all, right? I mean, if somebody gets that market, and it's not just these guys, Reliance is also trying to get that same market, and everybody.
Right
And
now, Big Basket is
and-
also Amazon, Flipkart.
and everybody has tried. More has tried it regionally. DMart has tried it with DMart ka apna delivery systems, which has not worked out well. And all of these guys are trying to own the same space, which is drive out the small retailer, replace them with a more efficient this thing, right? And therefore, there will always be people who will try to keep on owning this. There will always be the next and like next fool who will be ready to burn billions of more dollars to own this place. It is more like an acquisition of Indian retail space rather than thinking that Zepto and Blinkit are trying to get more customers for them.
Okay, yeah.
So the end goods are so kind of this thing that none of them will ever be profitable ever.
Okay. So you think they'll not
The
be
moment
able
they
to
become profitable, some VC will stand up and they will be profitable for maybe 2 or 3 years before the next VC decides that, hey, these guys are making a lot of money here and, I can burn 20-30 billion dollars for the next 5-7 years and I can own that space. So the moment they will become profitable, somebody will come in, start fighting with them and make them unprofitable. This space is never going to be profitable.
Got it. All right. All right, sir. I think that gives us a lot of context, and thank you for sharing all those insights. To sum it up, I think quickly we went through different kinds of retails based on first journey. One with crossword, the offline part, then with Flipkart, the digital part, or selling hard goods but digitally, the e-commerce route, and then third, selling digital products. After that, we understood if someone is looking to start an e-commerce business or a D2C brand, what are some steps that they can take, how sir looks at marketing, how sir looks at the product side of things, the corporate side of things, the governance side of things. After that, we spent quite a lot of time understanding specific issues and differences in B2B and how, and particularly offline, and how someone who's running a D2C brand can look at or evaluate D2C business or the offline businesses or B2B businesses and see if that is a suitable path of growth for them, or see if that is one more category that they can try. Again, we have clearly discussed the differences. Uh, Outside this, we discussed very quickly about Zepto, Blinkit, and their future and how Sir sees it. I think it has been wonderful, Sir, to have you on our show, and it has been an absolute brilliant experience for us. Any closing remarks that you want to share with our audience?
No, I think, I mean, there are no closing remarks, but a lot of thanks. Thank you for kind of getting me here. Thank you, Anurag, for being such a great host. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. Uh, and there are many places where you might not agree with what I said, and I would be more than happy to hear you out. Please do comment and let us know. Uh, my perspective is just a perspective, it's not absolute truth. So please engage with us and let us know what you think about it, and that's about.
So we look forward to hearing you or meeting you in the next show, the execution show, and the next episode of the execution show. Remember, the idea is we only want to share what can be acted upon, and please act upon as much of this as you can act upon. And we have lot of value, lot of important things that you can immediately apply on your business. Till then, see you in the next episode of the execution show. Thank you.